of the Dynasty Gambit. We are back to a three-man band. We were a two-man band last week, and finally back to all three of us. So let's go ahead and kick it over to Jay. Welcome back. I hope you had a great vacation. Maybe tell people, how good of a time you had this past week.
Man, oh man, I did like I was just telling y'all before we came on. If I could move somewhere, get a one-way ticket, and never come back, that would probably be the spot. I mean, honestly, absolutely gorgeous. The people there are phenomenal. Turks and Caicos outdid themselves as far as their hospitality. Just and you think about it, they speak English there too, so it's there's no language barrier. Nicest people you will ever meet. I mean, it's absolutely wonderful, beautiful. Would go back in a heartbeat. But since I can't go back, I brought some home.
Ah, there you go.
Some of the best rum in the world that I've had. So awesome trip. I got a little bit of suntan, man. It was like 80 degrees was like the coldest it got.
Yeah.
It was absolutely wonderful. Wonderful trip. Thank you guys for holding it down for me. Sorry I missed it. In fact, I'm happy I missed it because I didn't get to sit there and brag about my Buccaneers and then watch that horrifying Thursday night football that's been happening every Thursday night, and they brought it back.
Yeah, and it's not looking much better for tonight's episode either. But
there's going to be some offense tonight.
Yeah, maybe some one-sided offense, but it'll be offense for sure. So let's go ahead and kick it down to Brian there. So back again this week. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Devin. Just kind of. I guess I'm just kind of living in Jay's moment in regards to his trip and all that good stuff, and wishing I was there. But we did pretty okay last week. We just learned to talk more and listen less, so it wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah, just even more Bears talk. Unfortunately for everyone else, I like to ramble on about the Bears, but so we are back this week. I think traditionally we like to dive into the game, diagnose it a little bit first, and hit it back at the tail end of the episode. Tonight, it's no question this episode, this game, I should say, is not great. There's a lot of just key names already been ruled out. It's going to be probably a pretty one-sided affair. If it's not, it's going to shock the world. But we're not going to spend as much time on the game tonight. We're going to go ahead and dive into it right now. But, it's no secret. It was the trade deadline last week. Lots of injuries have happened. It was probably the most, the biggest probably trade deadline day, I would say, probably in NFL history. I think I saw there was 10 trades, which is the most by far.
Yeah, I think it was definitely the most trades on a trade deadline, but it was tied for the second most trades in a one-day span. And I want to say that was like a 93, 94. And they didn't say it, but I want to say that was draft day of 93, 94 is when they had that many trades in a one-day span as they did on Tuesday. Man, and they just kept coming. They just kept coming. Big names here and there. Yeah, I mean, it was phenomenal day on Tuesday. I know I didn't get much work done, but I was watching Twitter I was on Twitter a lot on Tuesday, and I tell you, somebody else who didn't get no work done was Scott Fish. He was constantly tweeting.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot to cover there. So let's get this dumpster fire of a game out of the way here real quick. Let's just hit on some news and notes. We've already seen some people that have been ruled out. Nico Collins is out. Brandon Cooks is out for the Texans. That's more of a personal issue. Seems like he's pretty upset that he was not traded on that trade deadline. So it seems like he's just a healthy scratch. He's taken himself out of the game from my understanding of it. And then on the Eagles side, I think the biggest one is just Jordan Davis. Defensive tackle is a rookie. He's out. I think it's an ankle injury. Should be back in week 13, I think is what it was, if I remember correctly. So let's kick it down to Brian. What's your thoughts on tonight's game? You got any highlights besides the fact that Houston's probably going to get trounced?
No, I mean definitely looking for a trouncing, but I don't know. I mean, got to keep in mind we're in week 9. There are 6 teams on bye, which is really important. And I'm assuming, I mean, yes, it's going to be one-sided, but my hope and my goal is that somehow miraculously the Texans stay within 2 to 3 scores throughout the game and keep the Eagles players in play. And also eventually, I mean, the only name you can really play on the Texans is going to be Damian Pierce in shallower leagues. But at the same time, I expect coming from behind Davis Mills to throw a ton of passes. Somebody's got to catch him. So a couple guys I would look at are Brevin Jordan, and also I would look at Philip Dorsett. So that's my thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked, actually, not trying to be funny, not joking around. I literally didn't know Philip Dorsett was still in the league until last week. So that was a shock to me then. But yeah, I think he's probably in line for some decent work. We might finally get this Brevin Jordan breakout game that we've been waiting for a year and a half now. So, injuries and stuff have played into that a little bit too. But he should, I would think, see a decent amount of targets. So,
yeah,
Jay,
outside of Brandon Cooks leading the team last week, Dorsett did have 5 targets and Jordan had 4. So now you got to figure Cooks' targets have to go somewhere. And the best 2 choices, except for the possibility of Rex Burkhead and Damian Pierce out of the backfield, would be those 2 guys.
Right. Yep. So, Jay, let's get it over to you.
Real quick. So Brandon Cooks, it's really confusing to me. He wanted to be traded, but I also saw where it looked like I guess he got in his new contract that he just signed. He's got a veto power, no trade clause or whatever, and he's got to approve the trade. He declined 2 trades. So I don't know where he wanted them to go or whatnot. I do know that his contract is not suitable for them to just cut him.
It's fully guaranteed for next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a $26 million hit next year. So it's not pretty in Houston. I'm with the thought that it could be a Brevin Jordan game. This Eagles defense is very, very, very good on the outside. They are susceptible to that seam pass from the tight end, but that also means that O-line has to hold up a little bit. Give Davis Mills, 2 seconds, this 1.5 second where he's got to think about it. He can't process everything. He's still fairly, young. So they're going to have to hold up on that offensive line. If they don't, this is going to be 1,000,000-0 by halftime. And you may as well go ahead and not start any Eagles, because if that's the case, they're not playing after the first quarter.
Right. Yeah, this game has the ability to probably get out of hand pretty quick. It's kind of like you said, it could be 1,000,000-0 by halftime. It's going to be interesting to see. So, with that being said, I think that's kind of the reason, you got your main starters here for the Eagles. There's no secret as to who those are. You're going to start your studs. But like Jay said, you might want to be a little wary of it because they might play just the first half. They might not play the second half,
Saying that, of course, if you've got AJB, if you've got Hurts, you're playing those guys.
Exactly.
The thought here to me, though, is, Devontae Smith. He's not been in an integral part every single week.
Yeah, he's very boomer bust.
Yep. This might be the week that you might want to play him, but then this also might be the week like, dude is on the end of the bench.
Right.
Depending on how you're looking at it. And it could go either way. You just got to take a gut feeling on it. I don't know that I can trust, I think in one league I have to start him. Just because of the six teams on bye, which, by the way, this is one of 2 weeks where we have 6 teams on bye.
Yeah.
Week 14 is coming too. There's 6 teams on bye there. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you're looking at some of these waiver claims and all that. So yeah, it should be it's going to be Thursday Night Football all over again.
Yeah, we think we've had like a handful of good games, 1 or 2 on the season, and then the rest have been basically like this. Where
if you're considering a handful 1 or 2, then you got some small ass hands.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So with that being said, like I said, we're gonna move past this game. We'll hit some other details, give our win loss for tonight, give some prop bets later on, like we usually do. But there's just really no sense in spending the majority of the episode talking about that when we've had an electric week in the NFL. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and go into some of the big trades that we had this week. So I can, I'll take the lead on this one just because my team was very active. So the Chicago Bears, they traded Roquan Smith for a second and a fourth. Sorry, second and a fifth. I apologize. Which I'm pretty okay with. I mean, it was if he wasn't going to re-sign, we tried to re-sign him multiple times. Obviously, he's a great player. I think he's going to do a lot better in the Ravens system than what he was doing in our current system. But they tried to get a deal done, just wasn't working out. So I like that mindset. I've always said that I don't understand why GMs, if you know a player is not staying, kind of similar to how we did with Allen Robinson, why you don't trade him away and get something out of him. So for these guys like that, for Roquan, who maybe wouldn't stay, you had the opportunity to franchise tag him, but probably wasn't in your long-term plans. Get what you can out of him. So they ended up making that trade with the Ravens, which I think the Ravens win that trade. But they end up using another one of our own second-round pick to get Chase Claypool, which I'm very excited about. And Brian, I know you probably have something to say about this as well, since you're a Steelers fan. But I think this, has a pretty big impact, just this trade, because you're going to have Claypool now on the Bears. This week, he's probably not going to be very involved. You still got to learn the playbook. It was a short week for him to come in. He just got there yesterday, actually. So I don't think he's going to be on the field, 90% of the snaps or anything like that. But I think it does really open up things on the Steelers for Pickens. He was already playing on the outside, but now, not going to get all these targets with Claypool. So, Brian, I'll go ahead and kick it down to you since you have a little more invested in this just like I do. So what are your thoughts on this Claypool trade?
I honestly think the trade was a win-win for definitely for both teams. I kind of feel a little bit like the second round pick is kind of a lofty pick to me. For Claypool is really talented, but I think a second round pick is pretty high. And currently that would be a top half of the second half of the second round. So I think with the 2023 draft being a pretty good draft, that Pittsburgh did okay with it. Plus, it gives another weapon for the Bears. So I think in general, Justin Fields is a winner, but I think Steelers were a winner as well. And then this year, I mean, we're pretty much giving up on the season. We're 2-6. I wish Calvin Austin wasn't hurt because he's out for the season now. He would have been great getting an opportunity to get his feet wet, but we're going to have to go to Steven Sims since Calvin Austin's out. But that being said, there'll be just more targets for Deontay and also Pickens. So, give the rookies an opportunity to grow together and go from there.
Yeah. Before I kick it over here to Jay, I just will say that was part of the deal that dampened my excitement a little bit, because when it first got reported, it just said a second. So I was under the impression, it's probably the Ravens second. Why would we give up our second when it's looking, like you said, a top 10 to 15 pick in the second round? So I was a little discouraged by that, but if he works out, then it doesn't matter what you ended up giving him. You know what I mean? So if you look at the free agent class that's coming up for wide receivers, definitely makes a lot of sense as to why he was able to pony up a second and just not even have to deal with that and overpay someone. So yeah, not a great free agent class. I think that played into this. But Jay, what's your thoughts on the Claypool trade?
Yeah, I don't mind it as much. I think it does, like you guys have said, I think it does help Pickens out, because I think Deontay's still going to, take the coverage, I think, for the most part, at least for the rest of the year. And Pickens and Pickett's have had that connection already. I also think it's going to help out Freiermuth as far as getting targets. Maybe it helps out Najee a little bit in the receiving game. He's just not running like he has been for the last year or so, or even when he was in Alabama. But on the Bears side of things, I think it helps out I don't know that it helps out Mooney as much, but I think it helps out Kmet a little bit more. And I know it helps out Fields, giving him another weapon. Now, that being said, you gave up a second-round pick, which is probably going to be I know y'all are saying top end of the second round, or, first part of the second round. But let's put it in perspective. It's probably going to be a top 40 pick overall. When you look at it that way, that's a hefty, hefty price to pay for a guy that was probably, I think he was drafted in the third round.
He was actually a second-round pick.
Late second. Okay, so they actually paid up on him. But I think they had to be quite honest, because I think the Packers were in on this as well, and they offered a second. Because I think if if the Bears would have said, I'll give you the Ravens second that we just got for Roquan, and the Packers weren't in it, I think the deal would have still got done.
Yeah.
But I think because the Packers were in it, the Bears said, okay, well, we'll give you a second that we know for sure is going to be ahead of that pick that the Packers can give you. And of course, I mean, who's not for the same player? You're going to take the sooner pick no matter what kind of draft you're looking at. So
right.
Yeah, I don't mind the trade, and I think, like I said, it's going to help. I think it's going to help all parties. I think it's a very fair trade. It's like a dynasty trade that we would trade and want to make sure that we're not, you're not trying to screw somebody over, and I don't think they got screwed over. It's a little higher than what I thought, what I think is fair, but I think it's overall it's damn good trade. Damn good trade.
Yeah, and like I said, no one really remembers trades from what do you spend on them when it works out. So if it works out, that second's not going to matter. But like you said, it does seem.
If Claypool goes the rest of the year, 250 yards, whatever, 2 touchdowns, but comes in next year and goes for 1,000 and 5 touchdowns, who cares what they spent on him? He's worth it.
Exactly. The other key is going to be restructuring his contract, I assume, because he'll be off his rookie contract at the end of next year. So I'm assuming you'll have to rework. Y'all will have to rework the trade, work the contract, keep him long term.
They got $100 million to spend.
Yeah,
it's not going to be hard.
Right. We got money to spend. I think that's probably what they wanted to do as well, was get him as much time with Justin Fields, see what they can do, and see if he is part of the long-term future. At least we have him for a year and a half, but if he does work out, then they're probably going to give him long-term extension, which I'm thinking they're going to do anyway. But the funny thing about this, and then before we move on to the next one, is sorry, I got to get all my Bears talk in. But we passed on Pickens multiple times in the second round. Had we have done that, we're not making this trade. And then if you go back even 3 years ago or 2 years ago when Claypool was drafted, we took Cole Kmet over Chase Claypool. So it's just been a lot of bad drafting on the Bears, which we're not. I don't hate the Kmet pick, but when you're trading for these guys that are all involved, it's like, had you just made a slight adjustment here, drafted this guy or this guy, you're not doing this today. But I'm still happy with it. We'll see what the future holds for that one. So, Brian, I'm going to kick it down to you. What's a trade that you saw this past week that you want to highlight?
That's a tough question. I'll be honest with you. Tuesday was a very busy day, but I guess one trade I would want to look at is Kadarius Toney. I think y'all are probably more informed than me, but I definitely want to look at that trade.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like I was actually listening to a podcast that Travis Kelce was on, and he's very excited about it. He says the guy has just been a beast in practice, which obviously you're not going to dog anyone as soon as they join your team. But, when he was coming out, he was almost compared to Tyreek Hill in some aspects, just getting the ball in his hand, and he's a playmaker. So, it kind of fills that void, seemingly on paper at least, that Tyreek Hill left in this offseason. So, I'm not sure how much he's going to play this particular weekend. He was traded earlier last week, so he had the bye week to study a little bit. But still, it's kind of hard to integrate someone that quickly into their offense. So, Jay, what's your thoughts on the Toney trade there to Kansas City?
Well, I watched Toney for whatever it was, 3 or 4 years in college down here in Florida, and loved him as a player. I thought he's going to do something in the NFL. I thought he could fit that Debo role. Slash, going back a few years. Brian, this guy, Cordell Stewart, kind of without the quarterback side of things. He could run it out of the backfield. He can run routes, that kind of good stuff. Here's the funny thing for me on this trade is Kadarius Toney has had hamstring injuries, knee issues, ankle issues for the last 2 years. All of a sudden, he gets traded to Kansas City. The plane lands, and Andy Reid immediately goes, he's 100% healthy.
Yeah.
So is it New York? Maybe it was just the cold in New York that
That's I actually saw Toney tweet about that, and he said that he's been healthy all season, but New York has been opting not to play him and call him injured. So not sure who to believe there,
after the issues in the clubhouse last year, they pretty much just slow played his injury, to be honest.
Yeah. That's the only thing I can figure is there was something off the field and it just kind of lingered.
Yeah.
But Brian Daboll came in this year, and that wasn't, he wasn't there for that, off the field stuff last year. So I don't know if there was just some lingering in the offseason or whatever, but man, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. That's such a high-powered offense.
Yeah.
And they've made MVS relevant at certain times. They've, Juju has been relevant. Hell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was relevant for the first 3 games this year.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with Tony over there.
I agree. I think it has the potential to be a really electric move. Really good buy low, high reward move for them there. So.
Can you imagine it if he goes into that building, walks over to Isaiah Pacheco and goes, "Here's your Rolex. Give me the 10."
You're right.
He's wearing 10.
Right.
But the door is fully open for a wide receiver, consistent wide receiver one. So who knows who's going to step up? So
right. Every week there, it's been, someone else besides Kelsey, obviously, but there hasn't been just Juju consistent or MVS consistent or anything like that. So door is open there for him to take over that wide receiver one role.
And I guarantee Andy Reid would like some consistency.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, so. For sure.
from anybody other than Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes.
Right. So, Jay, I'm going to go ahead and ask you this one then. What do you think about the Hockenson trade to the Vikings?
I think for the Vikings side of things, I think the person that hurts, in my opinion, is going to be Adam Thielen. Right. And when I say hurt, it's just going to take some of his red zone targets away. The Jefferson, it ain't going to touch Jefferson. Jefferson is going to get his, he is going to be what he is going to be. And I'm not saying that it's going to hurt Thielen in a bad way. It could help Thielen in the sense of Thielen's only going to, he's going to be more advantageous to get the 7-yard outs and turn them into 40-yard runs because of the coverage is going to be rolled over. The other person I think it's going to help more than anybody is going to be Kirk Cousins.
Right.
Kirk Cousins, we've seen Kirk Cousins be that consistent. He's a QB1, back end QB1, high end QB2, consistently. And he just does it quietly, But I think now he can maybe move up to that mid-tier, that 7, 8, maybe 9, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that range for that QB1 with the multiple targets. As far as Detroit goes, I've been on record saying this is going to help Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you look back at last year when you had Swift injured, or you had Hockenson injured for certain periods of time there, that's when Amon-Ra blew up. So I think that it's going to help him. We'll see what's going to happen with Williams when he gets on the field. If that's going to really eat into Amon-Ra's targets or anything. But I think it's going to help Swift as well. It's going to help Swift with on the under routes and that sort of thing, like the angle routes that he ran last week for the touchdown. So I think it's a win. That's another one of those win-win trades. Although I don't see how they didn't have to give up dude, he was a first round pick. And they gave up, they really didn't give up very much for him. So, but it's interdivision too. And that's kind of, I guess Detroit just wanted to, watch him, at least let their fans watch him once a year.
It kind of, I think says a little bit about what they think about him, that they're willing to trade him inside of the division here. They just don't see him as that guy, which, he's been pretty solid. I don't know if he's lived up to the 8th overall pick in the draft, but he's been solid.
Pull up Dan's. I want to see this a little bit better. Pull up Dan's comment right here. It's Hockenson about $11 million over the next year and a half. If they were to chase a free agent tight end, look at the guys who were either be their cut expiring. That's a huge okay. Yeah, I see what he's saying there. I agree with that. You're looking what Irv Smith just went on the IR, so you're going to sit here and who are the tight ends? We're all playing this in fantasy. They're doing it in real life football too. Who's the tight ends that are going to be available that are, going to produce what Hawk can produce.
Right.
So No, I mean, okay. I see what he's saying there. So yeah, big win for Minnesota in the sense of they didn't have to give up shit for him, and
Right.
they've got a top 5, top 6 tight end on at least in fantasy wise, he's a top 6 tight end. I think in real life NFL, he's a damn good tight end. You know, he
Yeah.
blocks very well. He can receive the ball. He can run routes. You know, his only downside right now is he was playing on Detroit. And they didn't they didn't win games.
Right. And that's I mean, he came out, of Iowa with, pretty high grades, just a well-rounded tight end, which I think he's shown here in the NFL. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge for him. I mean, that offense going forward, I think he's like 25. You got Justin Jefferson, 24, 25. They got some good building blocks there for whenever, I know next year Cousins is under contract with a fully guaranteed contract still, but pretty soon they are going to have to be pulling that trigger, getting a quarterback. So he's already got some really reliable weapons that are going to be there for the long term, seemingly now. So yeah, and then we got a comment here from Jamie, and it says Irv Smith was a top 8 tight end in red zone targets, which I can see Hawkinson having more, which I would agree with that as well. I mean, Irv Smith, for all the truthers out there, I think it's just, it's not going to happen. I mean, he has potential still. I mean, he has had terrible, terrible injury luck in his career here in the NFL. But I mean, this is clearly an upgrade. So whatever Irv Smith was getting, he's going to get and then some. So really like this move for them. I do like it even better for Hawkinson too in Dynasty. I mean, I think it moves him up, the Dynasty board a little bit, a spot or two. He was already pretty high, top 5 tight end or so. But you could justify moving him over guys like Waller, especially if you still had him above him. So yeah, it's a great move. Brian, do you have any thoughts on the Hawkinson trade here?
Yeah, I thought that was a really key statement that was just made about Irv Smith. Irv Smith's out, from what I understand, as much as 8 weeks. And right now, if I had to be asked who I see potentially winning the NFC, I don't know that I mean, it'd be nice if the Vikings defense was a little more consistent. But in all fairness, they've got a shot to get to the Super Bowl. And I don't blame them for picking up Hawkinson. I think it's a good trade.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, they're sitting 6-1 right now. They're running away with the division. The Packers, Bears, they're all 3-4. Not looking too likely. Like, I mean, the NFC is a wasteland in general. But yeah, they're definitely running away with it. They're one of the top seeds right now. So, a lot of the teams that we thought, the Rams, the Bucks, sorry, Jay, have not been doing as good as what we had imagined, So I mean, right now it's theirs to lose, that's for sure. I would say in the NFC.
Yeah, they're 6-1 and their 1 losses against the Eagles, who were undefeated and will stay undefeated probably tonight. I mean, I know Bam was in the chat a minute ago saying that this is a trap game for the Eagles tonight. And it very well could be. It very well could be a trap game, but we'll see. I did see this comment too, and I do I like Dan's thought right here where he's talking about going and getting having to pay him. Well, you don't have to pay him again. Hawk's under contract for 2 more years, is that right? So they don't have to cross that bridge for 2 years. They can disperse the money, and by then, hell, I mean it'll be $1 billion cap hit, $1 billion salary cap by then. So they'll be able to do whatever they want. But yeah, so I like this right here where Dan's talking about this salary cap as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a good point there. Just especially getting that comp pick, which the Lions, obviously I think they had higher aspirations than what has transpired so far this year. Only having 1 win on the season, you would think, just with as electric as their offense has been, they probably would have been a little better. So they probably just realized, we're not going anywhere. Still have a lot of work to do. Let's make some moves here, get what we can, and keep this rebuild going that's been happening for a decade or whatever it's been, but or not a decade, a century probably. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much. I mean, there were some other little offensive moves. I mean, we got a lot of defensive players that were on the move. Bradley Chubb went to the Miami Dolphins. In return, they sent back
Chase Edmonds
and some picks. Personally, I'm of the thinking that Chase Edmonds is not going to make a lot of difference there. They already have 4 running backs there. None of them are really doing much, and just to be quite frank, I've never been a Chase Edmonds guy, and everywhere he's gone, he's never done anything. So, there's always been this hype about him that he's going to have all this opportunity, especially this offseason, signing with the Dolphins. People thought it was going to be his job, which, it seemed to be like it was going to be his job, but I don't think there's a lot there. I'm curious, Jay, what your thoughts are on Chase Edmonds there. Do you think there's any value here at all? Stock up, stock down, anything like that for him?
And we were gonna do stock up, stock down later, and
Mm-hmm.
I had him as my stock down, and he's still a stock down for me. But there's actually another guy after the trade deadline that I'll talk about later that is even more of a stock down now. But yeah, Chase Edmonds, man, and I like the guy. I thought he performed when he was in Arizona when he had to. That's why he got the deal he got going to Miami, in my opinion. So I just don't know if they just didn't fit, if Mostert just was that much better. I mean, I thought he was doing okay in Miami. He had 2 games there where he was the dominant back, and then Mostert was like, let me show you how this is done, son. And just started playing. But Mostert's that player that is gonna, eventually, I don't wish injury on anybody, but eventually he is going to get injured. And that's why they went and picked up Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson can walk in the door today, play tomorrow, and know that offense. That's what Mike McDaniel did last year. So they know this offense. I think that was a perfect pickup for Miami Dolphins. You get Chubb, dominant defensive lineman, and then turn right around and go. I really thought they were going to have both Chubb and Hunt for a second there. I really that trade. I really thought they were going to go try and get Hunt, and then I guess it makes more sense to go get Jeff Wilson there. But oh well, I mean it's Miami, so they're gonna do their normal. They'll get into the playoffs and then they'll lose in the first round.
And at least now we kind of have the full picture now of the trade that San Francisco made with the Dolphins for those 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance. So they drafted. Oh, go ahead.
Did you see the tweet, John Lynch? It was a meme, I guess, but it was on Twitter, and it was like John Lynch just called and said he wanted all of his first back for Trey Lance.
I saw that one, and then I saw that
what was the draft day? It was a takeoff of the whole draft, all my first round picks, and
I saw a pretty good meme too. That was the Seahawks are trying to get Russell Wilson and trade for Geno Smith. I thought that was pretty good. But yeah, so we have the kind of the full picture there. So they drafted Jalen Waddle with one of those first round picks. They packaged another one for Tyreek Hill, and then they just packaged this one as well for Bradley Chubb. So, basically it comes down to Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb for Trey Lance. So Trey Lance better be a Hall of Famer. That's all I got to say when that's the type of return you're getting on those 3 draft picks.
He's not a Hall of Famer?
Hey,
he should have walked into the league with a gold jacket. What are you talking about?
Man, I know, man. That's going to be interesting to see how that trade pans out. I love seeing those after the fact when you trade off pieces like that, see what ends up happening. Lord knows they were hanging our heads over that on the Chicago Bears when we traded up to get Trubisky, and the 49ers are selecting all these other studs. So, it's going to be interesting to see there. So I'm not too sure if there's really a whole lot of more fantasy impact trades, that we can really discuss here.
There's one.
Oh, go ahead. Who am I missing?
CMC.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that last week while you were on the beat.
I didn't get to talk about that. Good
all right, let's get your opinion on the trade.
This dude just shows up and says, I don't need Jimmy Garoppolo. All I need is myself, the offensive line, and Brandon Ayuk, and we'll win this game. I'll get 3 touchdowns, and I'll score them in 3 different ways. I don't need you, Jimmy G.
Right. First player since 2005 to do a rushing, receiving, and a passing touchdown.
Do you know who that player was? LaDainian Tomlinson.
Oh, that's right. I did know that. I didn't know that until I saw the stat the other day, but I did know that. He said that.
LaDainian Tomlinson, when he was, and I want to say he was with the Chargers at the time. So, that was. I think he just, with the troubles that Jonathan Taylor's had, with the injuries and all this year, I think that just boosted him. no matter. I mean, CMC's RB1 now.
Oh,
And
yeah.
here's the thing that I think that a lot of people don't look at too is San Francisco's offensive line is a million times better than what they had in Carolina. And we talked about multiple times, multiple analysts have talked about CMC injury prone, CMC's injury prone. Maybe he's not injury prone. Maybe it was just a bad offensive line.
Right.
We'll see what he's going to do over the next 8 weeks or so, 9 weeks of the regular season. Dude, this could be the perfect fit. And it doesn't matter who the quarterback is anymore.
Right.
You know, so I think with that offensive line, I think CMC is going to the moon.
Yeah, this offense is pretty dang scary. You know, I mean, it's pick your poison. Who are you going to cover? You know, I mean, it's it made a lot of sense. That division is pretty weak at the moment. You know, I think the Seahawks are leading that division, which, I mean, they're playing great, but I don't know if, other teams are really thinking of them as that big of a threat. Clearly, the 49ers thought they could go all in, get CMC and make a push for it. The Rams have been down. So Cardinals have not been great. That Hard Knocks, I think, kicks off next week for the end season. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes because I can't imagine there's a lot of happiness going on inside the Cardinals locker room here lately.
D-Hop has looked great, though.
He has. I'll be the first to admit I've been wrong on Hopkins so far. Based off his usage last year, he was a pretty big sell high for me this past offseason. And yeah, he's kind of making me eat my words here. I thought with Hollywood coming in, which we haven't seen them on the field at the same time yet, but with him coming in and just, his overall down in usage, I really thought that he was at the start of the decline, and he's shown anything but. He looks great out there.
So John just put in the chat, and I think this is funny, by the way, because, he wore 23. CMC wore 23 last week. Does he change back to 22 this week?
See, I'm kind of wondering, a lot of times when people do that, they don't change anything. You know what I mean? Because usually they already –
superstitious and all?
Well, that, and then, I think there's rules, too. Like, when you choose a number, if they start making jerseys, you got to, pay so much of it if you want to change your number, something like that. So, I mean, he's got money.
I was going to say, whose pocket does it come out of? Does it come out of John Lynch's? Does it come out of Shanahan's? Does it come out of –
right?
I mean, they split the bill 3 ways. It's is this like a steak dinner? Well, I mean, this is what the jersey you have to pay.
Yeah, that's actually pretty funny. I never thought about that. So that's actually pretty good. All right, so like I said, I think we kind of hit on all of our meaningful trades as far as Dynasty goes. Like I said, there's a lot of defensive players that were still traded, but unless you're playing IDP, we're probably not going to spend too much time on that. We still have a lot of injury news to get to. This week has been riddled with injuries. Right before we came on, Michael Thomas been ruled out for the season, being placed on IR. Darrell Williams also being placed on IR. Right before Rashad Bateman placed on IR. He's done for the season as well. So those guys are at least on IR. They're out for quite a while. Michael Thomas, man, talk about a fall from grace from when he set that record with 149 catches a few years ago. I think he's played 6 games since that in the last 3 years. Just been pretty crazy. And I was a pretty big Bateman truther this whole offseason. So that news hurts me personally. Really had high hopes for him this year. And he started off electric in the first couple games with some big catches, but looks like his season's done. So just between those 3, Michael Thomas, Darrell Williams, Rashad Bateman, Brian, what's your thoughts on some of these players as far as the dynasty aspect?
Well, definitely the big loss is Rashad Bateman. To me, Devin Duvernay all of a sudden becomes the wide receiver there in Baltimore. He had a nice game last week, and he's an up-and-coming guy, so I like him. Michael Thomas I believe he scored back-to-back weeks 1 and 2, and basically has been out ever since either week 3 or week 4. So, I know he got placed on IR today, but it basically could have been placed on IR in about week 3. Yeah. So I did notice Jarvis Landry is practicing today, so that he adds back to the Olave factor. But Olave's the man, obviously moving forward there in New Orleans, no matter what. So That's the big name to remember. But like I said, in Baltimore, it's Devin Duvernay to me.
Jay, what's your thoughts on some of these guys?
Yeah, no, I agree. You almost, I mean, I guess at this point, for Michael Thomas, you almost just cut him. I mean,
I think that's what's going to happen this offseason. I mean, you've gotten nothing out of him.
no, I'm talking about as a fantasy owner.
Oh, yeah.
He's just
In Dynasty, though?
I mean, dude, it's been 3 full years, honestly.
Yeah, no, I get it. I just
2.5 years, and he's just sitting on your bench. You're not able to do anything with him because, okay, you could put him on the IR. He's still clogging a spot. You know what I mean?
right.
Dude is phenomenal when he's on the field. But you want to talk about boomer bust? Kadarius Toney, same person. They're the same person. At least Kadarius Toney's on the field, or wants to be. He wants to be on the field. You know, it doesn't seem like Michael Thomas wants to play right now, and I hate that because I think he's a damn good talent, but for whatever reason he doesn't want to play.
So we got a comment here from John Thiessen on YouTube. Says, with Bateman out, do we see more of a 2 tight end set with Isaiah Likely stud emerging? So,
I think so. Now, one thing to keep in mind about Andrews, they're going into a bye on week 10. They play Monday night, and he missed practice today. Yeah. So it's very possible heading into the bye and being a team that's in the playoff race, they may sit him this week and likely may get his snaps this week already. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure besides Duvernay who else you're going to throw to besides the 2 tight ends. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I would think they're probably going to do more of a 2 tight end set. I mean, it's kind of opened the door with the injuries that Andrews has had here lately for Isaiah Likely to actually kind of showcase some more of what he can do on the NFL level. And it looks like he hasn't disappointed. I mean, he's got, toe drags, everything like that. He had a crazy touchdown catch this past week. So he looks like a stud going forward. For a 4th-round pick, looks very good. The Ravens just know how to draft guys, man. But yeah, Jay, so what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, Ozzie Newsome passed on the draft. He found people he was so smart in the draft. He found people to follow his mentality of drafting, and that's phenomenal. I'm surprised that they haven't already done this with those. Yeah. To be quite honest, I said this in the offseason, and it may have been with you, Devin. I'm surprised that they wouldn't be in a 21, even a 22 personnel. I guess you're always in a 12 personnel with what's his the quarterback? I can't even think of his name now. Lamar Jackson. You're always with 2 running backs, no matter because Lamar is a running back too. But so I'm surprised they haven't already done it, and I guess I'm surprised they haven't done it, but I'll be even more surprised if they don't start doing it.
Yeah.
With those 2, even if you have Andrews on the field as a decoy because he's a little nicked, maybe he's more of a blocker and let Isaiah, go out. But man, I would be. That was a great point, and I think that's going to happen a lot more. To bring, going back into that 1960s, 1970s style of football, that smash mouth, where even you still have the passing game, but you got a running back playing quarterback.
Right.
I did want to make one comment on Jay's comment a minute ago about Michael Thomas and him being potential waiver fodder. The only thing I would slightly disagree with, and I agree with a lot of that comment, is in Sleeper, it seems like you got 25-person benches and 12-team, 14-team leagues. I've seen some players that really don't even exist still on people's rosters because, in all honesty, there's nothing on the waiver wire. So in a league like that, I can't encourage you to completely drop him, but he's definitely somebody that I'm not sure what his future looks like.
Yeah. So John in the chat right here, he's in one of my leagues, and in the league that we are in together, we have roster limits, so we can only have so many quarterbacks, so many wide receivers, so many running backs, that kind of thing, right? And we got a pretty good size Texas squad with and it's 2 years on the Texas squad now. So we set the league up, or they set the league up so it would be where you had waivers, right? And so it really does constrain you to actually pay attention on a weekly basis, on who's there. But so in a deep league, absolutely hold on to him. You can. There's people in some of my deep leagues that aren't even on an NFL team right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Thomas is on a team, I guess, but
Will Fuller.
Yeah, I was more saying that towards, if you're constrained, with these bye weeks, you need players that are actually going to be on the field. And
Yeah.
Michael Thomas is evidently not going to be on the field anytime soon. And he hasn't been there in the past for the, whatever the last 3-4 weeks he's not been on there. That's where I was going with that. But I agree. If you got a deep bench, put him down there. Cause I mean, if he comes back in 4 weeks and goes, throws up 35 points, then turn around and sell his ass. Get rid of him so he's not.
But in redraft, you should go ahead and drop him.
Oh yeah, redraft he's completely droppable. But Dynasty, put him on the trade block, see what you can get for him. Just be done with that situation. I don't think you want to be a part of that anymore.
Let me ask you this: would you take a 4th round pick?
No, I wouldn't.
Would you pay?
No, I'd hold on to Thomas.
I'd pay a 4th round pick all day long, but I wouldn't sell him for that.
Yeah. That's
all right. Well, before we get into the actual last little bits of the game here, Underdog Fantasy promo code GF2, get a deposit match up to $100. That's an Underdog Fantasy. Go over there, use the code GF2, get yourself a free match, and win some money. So, thanks for sponsoring this Underdog Fantasy. We appreciate that. And we have a question here pertaining to the game, which we've all kind of hit it on that. We can just recover that real quick here. Which Texan receiver do you see emerging as the winner, if any, tonight? Like I said, I think most of the same. I'm high on Brevin Jordan being the receiver. I mean, if you're talking actual wide receiver, probably talking Philip Dorsett, just out of opportunity. But as far as pass catcher goes, I want to put my money on Brevin Jordan. I'll go ahead and kick it around. Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with you, I guess, on those. I just don't see this. They're going to have to throw the ball. I don't know where they're going to throw the ball. I mean, it could be Dameon Pierce tonight, to be all, quite honest.
True.
It could be
Big Burkhead game.
Yeah, it could be all Burkhead and Pierce all night. So to be quite honest, I don't know. I do like the Brevin Jordan pick just because, like I said earlier, Philly's D is so good on the outsides, and they're susceptible to that seam route with the tight end. And it seems like it's finally getting to where, Davis Mills and Brevin Jordan are starting to do a little connection. I mean, hell, they could run 2 tight end tonight with OJ Howard. And
right.
You could get Brevin Jordan go for 65, 70 yards and OJ Howard go for 3 with 2 touchdowns. I don't know.
That's true.
This offense is so bad. So bad.
Yeah, big OJ Howard game tonight. That'd be about right. So, all right. Well, like I said, we got stock up, stock down. So hopefully Brian will be back. I know he's had a little bit of issues with connection here tonight. So I'm just going to go ahead and kick it over to you, Brian, or Jay. Sorry. Who was your stock up for this week?
So I made the show sheet this week, and I really wanted to make it to where it wasn't cheating. So I put as for low hanging fruit, I put Pollard. So that was basically he was off the books. Nobody could grab a hold of him. But my stock up this week is going to be Robert Tonyan. And this is going to sound a little bit weird, going off of the just coming off of the trade deadline, but we've all been looking for tight ends, and you can go to goingfor2.com right now, and you look at the week 9 waiver wire, and this is basically the exact same thing that I put into the waiver wire this week. So go check that out. We do it every week. So, but yeah, he's somebody that is a top. He's a tight end 1. So no matter what format you're in, he's a tight end 1. He's only 53% owned in sleeper, which is absolutely asinine to me when everybody's looking for tight ends. So with the injury to Watson, Cobb on the IR, Lazard's probably going to miss another week. You got Aaron Jones and you've got, AJ Dillon, but that's not pushing the ball down the field. And I think, Robert Tonyan can start doing that. He's done it for the last couple weeks. So as a wide receiver, tight end, whatever, Give me Robert Tonyan stock up right now.
Yeah, I think that's pretty solid. I agree with a lot of those takes there, especially, I mean, he had a tight end or a touchdown robbed from him last week on a really bad offensive pass interference call. So yeah, I think, I mean,
freaking horrible. What are we doing?
Yeah, there's been so many bad calls.
That call was almost as bad as the Moore taking his helmet off when he was out of the back.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you got to make the kick. I get it, but dude, come on, let the kids play for a minute. Jesus, God Almighty, that had nothing to do with the game. Nothing to do with the play. Come on.
I completely agree. This, refs changing outcomes of games. That's not a good look. Yeah. So for my stock up, we've already talked about it. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. Then I'll kick it down to Brian. Devin Duvernay, we've already talked about him pretty good tonight. Bateman's out, like we've said. He's been seeing the field pretty consistently on the upper 60s and 70% of all the snaps. I do expect that to increase slightly. I'm not sure if he's going to be a 95 to 90% of the snaps on the field, but even a small uptick, 75%, maybe in the 80% range, just being used a little more. He's always a deep threat. He's probably going to take over part of that role from Bateman being hurt. Bateman was a really good deep threat for them, so I could see him catching some long touchdowns here. So he's my stock up for the week. For those reasons. So not going to really send it around to the group since we've already spent a decent amount of time on that. I think we've already made our point pretty clear on that one. So Brian, let's get your stock up for the week.
My stock up is actually one of Devin's guys, Justin Fields. He's currently quarterback 11 on the season in Sleeper. And over the last 3 weeks, he's averaged close to 80 yards rushing and scored 2 touchdowns over that span. So he's basically giving you a floor of about 10 to 12 points just from his rushing alone. And his passing, he's actually had 4 touchdowns, 520 yards over those 3 weeks. So they're giving a little bit increased volume. He's now, of course, got Darnell Mooney that's starting to come along with him. Claypool may or may not be this week, but maybe next week. So all of a sudden, Justin Fields is looking like the quarterback that the Bears drafted. So they got to be pretty excited about it.
Yeah, he's actually been quarterback 2 in fantasy over the last 3 weeks. So really been performing and with really not passing that much, which again shows you how valuable those rush yards are if you have a quarterback that can get those for you.
Yeah, I was talking about this last night because, you look at his stats for the first 4 games or so, and he was right around 16, 17 pass attempts, right? You look at the last 4 weeks, and he's over the 20 mark, and he's gone as high as 22, 23, 24, I think. It may be a little bit higher than that, but he's dropping back 40 times a game. He's only throwing it 27. The other times, he's taking off.
Yep.
He's allowing him to use fields. Well, yeah, but they're allowing him to use his fields.
That seems to be his magical threshold for passing is somewhere between that 20 to 23 mark. Anything that and above, he's going to have a really good week or has the opportunity to do so.
And he did it in college.
Yeah.
He did it in college. I mean, and in the Big Ten, which I'm an SEC guy, but in the Big Ten is a damn good conference. They face good players. So, I mean, I think a lot of it is the offensive line, and I think they fixed that this offseason.
Yeah, we got the money to spend. It's just going to depend on if there's any good free agents or anything like that for that. But I will say it has been encouraging the last couple of weeks that doing it against Bill Belichick, who historically has, his defense plays, young QBs very well. So performing well against them, and then the Cowboys have been lights out this year on defense. So, putting up, almost back-to-back 30-point games. We finished with 29 last week, but pretty solid.
2 top 7 defenses they just played.
Yeah,
in New England and Dallas. So, and he performed. They didn't win, but he performed. So that's all that matters. That's all. That's what you're looking for. That he's going up. So.
I think that's kind of what made the Claypool trade happen as well, because I think our GM finally had seen our quarterback take the turn and start, ascending to where they're like, all right, let's get him some help. Let's see what's going on. So All right, Jay, what is your stock down this week?
This is going to hurt some people's feelings. And it's kind of weird that I had Robert Tonyan as my stock up, and I'm going to have this dude as my stock down. But it's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, and it's not because of Aaron Rodgers; it's because of the Green Bay Packers right now. To be quite honest, halfway through the season, his is his stat line. Halfway through the season, 274 attempts, 182 receptions or completions rather. 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 6 fumbles. 3 of them have been lost, and the Packers gave him no help at the trade deadline. So, when is the last time? So, if you look at that, that's 8 games, so 16 games. He's looking at what 20, just under 3,000 yards, right? When's the last time Aaron Rodgers had less than 3,000 yards?
Right,
in the season.
Not to mention,
only had it one time, and it was only because he only played 6 games because he was injured. To be quite honest,
I never found the answer to this question either. But being a Bears fan, I'm a certified Packers hater. But when's the last time the Packers, not just Aaron Rodgers, but the Packers have lost 3 games in a row? I mean, I think you got to go back. You might be going back to the 90s. I don't know if Favre ever did it, but yeah, it's just not a great look. I don't understand from the Packers' point of view how you pay Aaron Rodgers the money you paid him. He's in the twilight of his career. How you're not going all in. You're seeing you're seeing the Dolphins go all in. You know what I mean? I don't understand. I know that's not typically how they operate, but you're in a special situation here. You got 3 years on his contract left. If he plays it all out, what they're doing this year, he might not want to come back next year. It's just it's pretty crazy, and I fully agree that he's a stock down. He's almost unstartable. I'd be looking elsewhere. I have him actually in a redraft league, 2 quarterback, and I've been trying to look elsewhere. Like I've almost debated on starting Heineke over him. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, well, so going back to the stats I just threw up at you, 6 fumbles, 3 lost. How many? Sorry, John.
Hey, man, I never get to do this as a Bears fan. I have to fucking hate on him, and I have to do this whenever I can.
How many fumbles do you think Aaron Rodgers, if you can remember correctly, how many fumbles did Aaron Rodgers have last year? All year long?
Yeah, maybe 2, 3.
3 total fumbles last year, lost 0.
Mm-hmm.
He's already doubled the amount of fumbles and he's lost the amount that he fumbled last year. So, man, yeah, definitely a stock down for me. I in a redraft league, he's almost unstartable.
Yep, he's borderline droppable. So especially in redraft. Even in Dynasty, depending on what your team makeup is, I don't know if you're losing much. You know what I mean? If you drop him in Dynasty.
And there's Kyle, another Packer fan right there, telling you that he would start Heineke over Rodgers. So, that just shows you how bad it is in Green Bay. I know he's in Canada and all, but at least in Green Bay, it's bad too. So, yeah, to be quite honest, I don't even know if with the thought process, like you were just saying, he's got a 3-year contract. We don't know if he's going to come back after this horrible crap that they're giving him. In a dynasty, you may want to look at shipping him now.
Yeah. If you can get anything for him,
yeah, take what you can get.
I don't even know what you can get for him right now.
Okay. Yeah, would you take a 4th? Would you take a 3rd?
Hopefully he hadn't dropped that far in a super flex, but
he's not going to. Of course, he's not going to drop that far in super flex. But he's definitely the super flex. He's not your starting quarterback,
right? And Kyle backing me up here said that he has Heineke as his QB 10 to be fair for the week. The only reason I've been hesitating on it is because Rodgers has the Lions and Heineke has the Vikings. So it's like one more week. You know what I mean? Just give me something, Rodgers. That's the only reason I haven't pulled the trigger.
Yeah, and it's going to be such a horrible feeling when the Lions defense actually shows up this week.
Right. So, Brian, what is your stock down for the week?
My stock down is Jonathan Taylor. His yards per carry has been fine the last 2 weeks, but he's had 26 carries over that span. He tweaked an ankle last week. He missed practice yesterday and today. Hadn't scored since week 1. And from memory, no, not from memory, from very good memory, He was the 1.01 in a lot of non-super flex leagues. And I saw a redraft of like a mid-season redraft last night, and I only watched the first 15 picks or so. And it was in a redraft league. His name wasn't even selected in the top 15 players. So I think his value's dropped more than anybody on the season. And now they got a quarterback change in Ellinger, and that ain't going to help either. So
yeah, especially Ellinger being pretty mobile compared to Matt Ryan. I mean, I'm not saying he's Lamar Jackson out there by any means, but he definitely will give you a little more than what anything you would ever get out of Matt Ryan.
Yep. So Jonathan Taylor, one target last week, right? But here's the crazier stat. He has had 0 top 20 finishes since week 2. 6 straight weeks of finishing 20 or further. That's not what you wanted from your 101, 102 pick in a single quarterback.
Let's just say a lot of my leagues, I set my initial items on Tuesday. He's not touching my lineup until there's a bye week for somebody else on my team.
Yeah, like you said, he didn't practice today or yesterday, so it's already not trending well. And I believe they have a bye coming up. I think week 14. So I mean,
they got a bye late season.
I mean, they did just make the trade. They got Zach Moss there, and I guess that's another one we didn't really hit on. They got to ship Nyheim Hines out. But that Deion Jackson stepped up a couple of weeks ago and looked pretty good.
Yeah, Deion, that's my man right there.
Yeah, he looked pretty good.
I would be playing him in a flex over JT. That's sad to say.
Yeah, what a crazy season that's been, man, for him.
I'm not playing him as my starting running back unless I absolutely have to.
But,
at this point, it's like, man, can you even play JT? Because you can't trust that he's going to be on the field. I think he had like 3 points last week on, I think 40 something % of the snaps.
Yeah.
So he wasn't even on the field hardly.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give my stock down here, which Jay stole my thunder a little bit on my stock down earlier when we started talking about the Hockenson trade. So we don't got to spend too much time on this one since we already covered it. We still got prop bets and everything like that to get into tonight. So mine is Adam Thielen for a lot of the same reasons that Jay already outlined earlier as well. The Hockenson trade, I think, really hurts his value. Again, similar to what Jay was saying, I don't think it's necessarily going to hurt him as far as a lot of the target share, a lot of the snap percentage, stuff like that. But, I think touchdowns, he's going to be a little more versatile than Irv Smith was. I think he's definitely, an uptick in his usage there. So Adam, I think, is kind of falling down the totem pole with this trade. I mean, Jefferson's obviously going to eat. You got Dalvin Cook still catching passes out of the backfield. And now with Hockenson there, I think Hockenson kind of usurps his role as the second wide receiver or second pass catching option if you don't include Dalvin Cook there. So, like I said, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that one. We got some other things we got to get to here before kickoff. So that's my stock down for the week.
The only thing I'll say to that is, I didn't even think about this until you just said that. KJ Osborne.
Mm-hmm.
That might be somebody else that is just, little stock down because he's
for sure
wide receiver, so maybe a little stock down there as well.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into our parlays, let's just go ahead and give a quick score prediction for tonight. Looks like we both think it's going to be rough, or all three of us think it's going to be pretty rough for the Texans here. So, Brian, what's your score for tonight?
35-10
Texans. No, 35-10 Eagles.
You said Texans. I'm like, that's not what's written down, but hey, that's a hell of a change, Man, we're all swinging and this and that.
If Houston, for some miracle, is able to beat the undefeated Eagles tonight, I might just give up any kind of analysis on the NFL for the rest of my life.
Yeah, we all will.
All right, Jason, what's your prediction here for tonight?
I got Philly by 1,000,000 by halftime. I got 41-10. 41-10 Philly. And that's going to be – I truly think that's going to be a lot of garbage time touchdowns, and it's going to be a lot of second-string touchdowns in that fourth quarter.
Right. I'm My score for tonight is 40-0. They are not putting points up on the board tonight. That's right. Getting skunked like the Las Vegas Raiders. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be a great game for them. I mean, even like you said, I think Jay just said, garbage time, they might get some of the points of what he was predicting. Just going to be a very rough game for them tonight. I'm actually starting the Eagles defense as my Showtime player in DraftKings tonight in the showdown, as like the one that gets the extra points. So that's how much confidence I have in the Eagles defense tonight. So they're an elite usage for tonight if you have them. So yeah, that's our scores for this week. And now let's get into some parlays. So Brian, hit us with some of your favorite parlays for this game.
I'm going to start on the Texans side of the ball just because. So I'm okay with going Dameon Pierce over his rushing total, which from memory I think was 65.5. I think I'm okay with that. And as a little sneaky pick, I'm going to go Brevin Jordan over 2.5 catches. Those are my Houston side. And in regards to the Eagles side, I'm going under the yardage total for Jalen Hurts because I think it'll just be more of a rushing game. So that was 232.5. And this is going to sound weird, but I'm going under the rushing total for Miles Sanders, which is 77.5, because I think they'll get more from Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell if the game gets away from the second half. So those are my picks.
Yeah, I like those. And real quick before I kick it over to Jay, Kyle says if the Texans win, I'm doing the opposite of my take. He says I will be taking as many hot takes as possible because literally anything can happen if they are able to win this game. So I hear you, Kyle. I will just be too broken of a man to ever even form a thought. So that's why I can't do it. So, Jay, what's some of your favorite parlays for this game?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I looked at these numbers. I think it was Tuesday, and on Tuesday the spread was like 13. It is the line has moved to 14 now. The over under was 44, and now that is at 45. So there's been a put onto Philly. So I went through a couple different sites looking at some of their props and all that. So Underdog had Pierce at 81.5 rushing and receiving. I'd be taking the under on that for sure. Just as a combined. So on FanDuel, AJB, anytime touchdown is a plus 110, and then taking Philly at that point at giving 13. So I'd be taking that for sure on both of those. Price Picks was looking at Jalen Hurts 240.5. I would be taking the over on that. Because I think the first half is going to be a good bit of passing. I think there might be 2 or 3 60-plus yard touchdowns or 60-yard pass plays for AJB. I mean, for Jalen Hurts there. Pierce, looking at the 60.5 rushing by itself. I put over on here, but the more I think about it, I think I'd be leaning to the under. That might be one I wouldn't even play anymore at 60.5. And then the smash for me tonight was Davis Mills passing 210.5. I'm taking the under for sure on that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I agree with all these. That's pretty solid. This is going to be rough for the Texans, man. This is going to be a long night. That's just going to be real bad.
And now we watch Davis Mills go for like 315, 3 touchdowns. Pierce is going to catch 2 of them. He's going to smash the over with like 100 yards rushing, 73 yards receiving or some BS like this. Philly's going to lose by like 31.
Hey, where are you on AJ Brown? He's at 67.5 and 4.5 catches.
He could do 67.5
on one catch.
Reception, yeah.
I'd take the over.
So I see your line on there with AJB over 67.5 in yards and 4.5 catches. I would be over on both as well. I think I'd be over on the Brevin Jordan at 2.5. like I said, I had over on Pierce at 60.5 yards. I'm leaning the under, but hell, I might go over on 60.5 just to beat your 65.5. You know, I can get 61 yards and win both of them. So the Hurts one for me is I don't understand. I guess I do when I look at it. But I still think he's over 240. I still think he's over 240 passing, and you have him as 232.
He needs over 100 in the first quarter.
Oh, he's over 100 in the first. He might be over 100 on the first play.
All right. And well, before we get out of here, it looks like we got about 4 minutes to kick off. Just hitting on what Kyle said here. I thought it was pretty good. He said he loved chaos. Go Texans. So especially now that Easter B is out of here, like Jesus from his tomb instead of 3 years. And it was 3 years instead of 3 days later. But yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah, thanks everyone for your comments this week. Really appreciate it. Jay, it was great having you back onto the Gambit as well. I'm sure you probably rather still be in Turks and Caicos than here on the Gambit, but you know.
The only thing I wish is, honestly, is I wish I was in Turks and Caicos for sure. And Dan, just to answer your question from earlier, Turks and Caicos are the same spot. There is not a Turks or Caicos. It's Turks and Caicos.
I used to have a joke about that where, you know how people are like, got a mic and a backup mic? I was like, I got Turks and I got Caicos.
I wish I was there with better internet because they don't have they don't have the greatest internet down there, of course. You know, so that's it's kind of in there. I try to jump on my Wednesday night show and I popped in on the background, and as soon as Chase went to put me in, I think I dropped. It was just like, whatever, I'm not even going to try.
We got Kyle's here saying he doesn't even know how to say it. So
Turks and Caicos. Oh, that's right. He did have a problem saying it the other night.
He says, great show, guys. This Power Trio rocks. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate all the kind comments. Nice being back to the three-man band. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it around. Just let everyone know kind of what's going on, where they can find you at, all that type of good stuff. So, Brian, I'll throw it down to you first.
Well, you can find all my content at Vandegrad92. I've been doing the waiver wire article that we've got coming out on Monday night here at Going for Two. And also I'm part of the For Frequency Network. For Frequency's Sake Network. We've got a podcast dropping tomorrow night, DFS Deep Dive. And then I've got a main show podcast dropping on Sunday. It'll be a live podcast from 10 to 11:30. So either here at Going for Two or For Frequency's Sake, I'm pretty busy, but always check my content at Vandegrad92. And thanks again for joining in.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to John. Says, great show, boys. So appreciate that as well. And Jay, let's kick it up to you.
Hey, quick, is that in the morning? In the morning?
DFS is at night. It's at 7 o'clock on Friday night, but it's available on Twitter right immediately following.
Oh, looks like you were frozen there a little bit, Jay. Not sure if you said anything or not, but
yeah. No, my computer just froze up. Am I good right now?
Yep. You look all right.
Yeah, I don't know if my computer just froze there for a second. Man, you can find me right here on Thursday night's pregame with the Gambit, and then find me over there on Twitter at FantasyJ77. You can find me Wednesday nights with the Fantasy at 8 o'clock over there with Chase and Jacob and Shane Manila. And man, I'm part of the waiver wire stuff as well. So, hey, hit me up over there. You can find us in the Discord. It's free. The Discord is free. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah, before we get out of here, looks like John's making fun of your internet connection there. So it says worse than Turks and Caicos.
I'm not surprised. He's probably already hit me up on the league chat as well. You know.
All right. And yeah, you guys can find me here every Thursday night. Obviously, you can find me on Twitter at Devin Deal. Any trade questions, anything like that, always happy to help. Go over to Going for Two. Check out all the great shows we got on the Going for Two live network on YouTube. We have weekly shows, so make sure you're checking all those out if you're not already. And with that being said, thank you for joining the Dynasty Gambit. We will see you all next week.